Hello, my Bill 5000 Nation. How's everyone doing today? Hopefully, everyone's having a great day. If not, hope it gets better from here. All right, we are back with another lazy masquerade. This one is titled History's Most Chilling True Crime Cases. Actually suggested to me by a viewer. If I'm not mistaken, we have another suggestion by another viewer for Lazy Masquerade as well. That will be coming up. So, excited. I love it when y'all pick them. Because I know I'm not traumatizing y'all. Yay. Alright, I'm excited. Go ahead, turn them lights down low. Put on something comfy, cuddle up with someone special. Hmm. Chilling true crime. Historical chilling true crime, right? History's most chilling. Let's get historically chilly. Yeah, yeah, that's what we're doing. Fuck it.
Halloween, a holiday steeped in history and tradition. With the spookiest day of the year fast approaching, I thought it would be fun to mix things up and explore a few of the darkest cases from the past 2 centuries. Expect to hear about a Moroccan cobbler turned human butcher, a Japanese geisha with a taste for vengeance, and a German criminal so depraved the locals began calling him a vampire. But just before we start, this video is sponsored.
My interests have peaked. Let's go past the raid. A little bit. At least a little bit. A little bit. A little bit. A little bit more. A little bit more. His are long. We should be good there.
Your prize. This special event runs from October 15th to November 5th, and once it's over, that's it. So be quick. If you haven't
Be there, be square, bud.
started playing Raid yet, click my link in the description or scan my QR code on screen now, and you'll get unique bonuses worth $30. We're talking a free epic champion, Rector Drath, 200k silver after the first bricks were laid. We know it now, thanks to the rich. Just off the coast of northwestern Africa lies one of the most ancient and storied cities in the world. Thanks to the rich ochre of its sandstone buildings, the place was once known as the Red City. But almost 1,000
I could see that, but it's beautiful. Paint the walls red with their blood. Ooh, I wonder if it's like places like that where that saying comes from. Like, say, like a battle went on and, it was sandstone or something, and the light was hitting just right. What if it looked like blood? Maybe that. I don't know.
years after the first bricks were laid, we know it now by another name: Marrakesh. Founded in the year 1070 by Emperor Abu Bakr ibn Umar, the city became one of the jewels of his empire, with Marrakesh rapidly expanding to become a center of culture and commerce. Some of the most talented architects in the region would make their mark on Marrakesh, creating magnificent sculptures that we still admire to this
I mean, it's a beautiful looking place. I would want to leave my mark. I would mark something with something.
day. For example, Kotabia and the El Badi Palace.
Like right there on the side of the wall, Bill 5000 was here.
But in other areas of the city, the expansion was considerably less orderly. Surrounding some of the busiest squares and marketplaces in the world are a veritable maze of narrow passages, a literal labyrinth of walls and buildings. To this day, it isn't unusual for even locals to sometimes lose their way there, but occasionally, in the past, those who wandered through the teeming crowds and arterial alleyways sometimes seem to disappear entirely.
Why?
During the closing years of the 19th century, a number of young women began to go missing while running errands in the central marketplace, or souk. On each occasion, dozens of the missing woman's loved ones would scour the city or retrace her steps in hopes of finding her alive. But on each occasion, their labors were fruitless, and their daughters, sisters, and wives were never seen again.
Bro, did you see that place? They haven't disappeared. They're there. You know that place, like, all your shit ends up, no matter, I don't know, in my head, there's this magical, mythical place, okay? Place where all the socks that you can never find are, it's the place where the keys you can never find are, anything you can never find are in this place. What if they're there too? What if they made a wrong turn, got lost, and was like, and it just magically happens?
For years, the pattern continued. A young woman would visit the souk, only to vanish. Her loved ones would retrace her steps, and, in each instance, would wind up at the store of a shoemaker. One belonging to a man named Hajj Mohammed Mesfoui.
He's a
Mesfoui
murderer.
primarily made his living by repairing shoes, but the small shop that he owned became
With people's flesh?
host to a number of other services too. Mesfoui employed a 70-year-old woman named Anna, whose job it was to compose written letters on behalf of the mostly illiterate people of Marrakesh. This service brought the small shop a lot of trade, with scores of people visiting Mesfoui's on the daily. But the shop also provided the perfect front for a considerably more sinister business. Mesfoui was an experienced businessman and offered almost all of his customers what's known in Arabic as a bakshish. Bakshish can refer to any kind of small gift, tip, or bribe, but in this case, it refers to Mesfoui's practice of offering his customers some kind of refreshment in order to facilitate a sale. If he was measuring a prospective client's feet in preparation for crafting a pair of shoes, say, Mesfoui would offer them a glass of cardamom tea or spiced coffee, and the same applied for those who patronized Anna's dictation service. Yet, every so often, a young woman visiting Mesfoui's shop would catch the shoemaker's eye, and while preparing their refreshments, he would slip something extra in their glass. Using a cocktail of powerful natural sedatives,
But I say, ew, was his blood? I seen it looked like blood. And then I was like, why would he do that? Is it like a tracking thing? I seen my blood. Is that way? My blood is that way. It's in her. That direction. Something like that.
Mesfoui would render his client unconscious before dragging them into the back of his shop. Then, once his victim was restrained, Mesfoui would take a razor-sharp blade and begin slicing into their throat. He would hack and saw, parting meat from bone, until finally the poor girl's head was freed from her body. Following this, Mesfoui would begin mutilating their bodies, carving intricate symbols and nonsensical phrases into their cold flesh. When he grew weary of such depravities, Mesfoui would drag his victim's remains into the earthen cellar of his shop and begin the process of dismemberment and burial. In total, he was responsible for the disappearances of 36 young women.
Holy shit.
His rampage only came to an end when the family of his final victim burst through his front door and found the remains of 20 slain women in the pit under his store. The other 16 were found in a garden outside.
What?
During Mesfoui's trial, the court heard how he had bought his elderly assistant's silence. He would gift Anna jewelry lifted from his victim's remains, and in exchange, she turned a blind eye.
God.
Anna herself,
Like this son bitch, not only was he like corrupt and evil, like he corrupted all around him. Fuck. Oh. It's contagious. It's fucking contagious.
perished during her torture, as jailers attempted to coax additional confessions from her. But Mesfoui was doomed to suffer a considerably more drawn-out fate.
Good.
Following his conviction on May 2nd, 1906, local judges wanted Mesfoui to suffer
1906. Damn, this is his.
for a long and agonizing punishment, say, being nailed to 2 planks of wood and left to bake in the sun. But international pressure forced Moroccan magistrates to lessen Mesfoui's sentence. Just as he had removed the heads of 36 women, Mesfoui was now to have his own head lopped off. This was something Morocco's European neighbours to the north found more humane. But the judgment came with a caveat. In order to appease the citizens of Marrakesh,
yeah, more humane. I mean, quicker. If quicker is more humane, then quicker. It's all pretty fucked up, but honestly, like I'm not. He deserves it all. Like he deserves to be nailed up to the board, left out the bake in the sun. He deserves to have his peen cut off and like repetitively beaten with it. You know? He deserves to have like rocks thrown into him. I didn't misspeak. I meant into him. Like they bend him over and like hook a ratchet strap up to one butt cheek, another one up to another butt cheek, and like and start throwing rocks into him. So he's like a beanie baby. Yeah.
who were enraged by this light sentence, Mesfoui was also condemned to daily public lashings for an entire month. The families of his victims whooped and cheered as the flesh on his back was flayed, then doused with vinegar. Weeks later, as the day of Mesfoui's final sentence approached,
That's a little sadistic. I'm okay with it. Like, I am okay with it. Like, I mean, it was like 1906, right? That's well over 100 years ago. People were brutal back then. Let's just spell it like that. That's the best. That's the nicest way I can fucking put it. Okay, that's the. That is literally. I'm sitting here trying to rack my brain, trying to figure out the nicest way I can put that. That is literally the nicest way I can put that. So, keeping that in mind, people back then were brutal, but people didn't fuck up as bad. Now it's like, oh, they're just going like inject me. I'm just gonna go sleep. It's gonna be whatever. That's how it goes. It's like, eh. But like, if I go and steal that, I'm probably going to get beaten for probably 6 to 12 months straight, and then my head's going to cut the fuck off. It ain't going to be none of this is going to be fucking pleasant. I don't want to do that. See, deterrent. Fear is an amazing deterrent. Long story short, fear amazing deterrent. I would be scared to do a damn thing back in the day.
the citizens of Marrakesh were reminded just how heinous his crimes really were. Once again, unrest began to spread amongst the populace, and once again, the mob demanded that Mesfoui receive a harsher sentence. The authorities stayed silent on the subject, and up until the day in question, everyone believed that Mesfoui would have his head chopped off. Yet, after he was led from his prison cell and into the largest square in the city, officials announced a very different form of punishment indeed. They told everyone that Mesfoui was to be immured. As I've mentioned in past uploads,
I haven't seen those past uploads. I don't know what that word means. Tell me the word. He's gonna tell me the word.
immurement is where a person is confined to a small, inescapable space that serves as their tomb. They may be locked inside a small box or bricked up inside a wall. It's similar to being buried alive, only with one distinct difference. Those who are buried alive perish from asphyxiation, a relatively quick and painless process compared to the slow starvation that occurs during immurement. Those who are immured experience their own body slowly eating itself, while their tongue swells so much that they can barely breathe. Some deteriorate into such a madness that in the end, death is a mercy.
Oh, fuck.
Mesfoui was said to have screamed
I take back what I say. People weren't brutal back in the day. They were fucking savage. Holy shit. Damn.
And howled for mercy as his jailers revealed his final resting place. In secret, authorities had commissioned 2 masons to create a small chamber in the thick walls of the city's main bazaar. Mesfoi's new cell was only 2 feet deep and wide and 6 feet high. Chains were fixed to the chamber's rear, and as Mesfoi's restraints were affixed to him, he continued to beg for mercy. His pleas fell upon deaf ears. Hundreds of his victims' family members filled the square, and rather than sympathize, they instead threw offal at him. As the first bricks were laid, the crowd hurled insults at Mesfoi, laughing at his anguish as he pleaded to have his head removed instead. When the final brick sealed up Mesfoi's
I don't fucking blame him at all. I'd be like, no, please cut off my damn head. No, don't do this shit. Geneva Convention. I wasn't Miranda. Something. Loopholes, please. Just cut my fucking head off. Oh, damn. That would be, oh, that would be awful. That'd be so bad. I would feel so bad. Did they put something in their mouths so they don't have to hear them screaming? Or is that like, oh, I'm having a bad day. I'm going to go in front of the prison wall and listen to the people dying on the inside scream for help, and it always puts a smile on my face. People back in the day were fucking savage.
tomb? The crowd fell silent, but only so they might better hear the man's screams of horror from inside. When he cried out in anguish, the crowd cheered. Locals would pass by the square regularly to hear Mesfroi screaming from within their city walls. Word has it that he could be heard sobbing, begging, and screaming for 3 days straight, before finally falling silent. Many locals voiced their anger that he had gotten off so lightly, perishing so quickly. Harada Kinu, or as she would come to be known, Yo Arashi, was born in 1845 on Japan's Miura Peninsula. Little is known about her background, but it's believed that she was the daughter of a fisherman who lived on the island of Jogashima.
That's gorgeous.
One source claims that her family was so poor that she was sold to a geisha house in her middle teens, while others state that she joined willingly following her move to Tokyo. But what we do know for certain...
Geisha house. I'm not well cultured. Geisha house, that's kind of like a burlesque house, right? I don't want to say prostitution house. Was a geisha house a prostitution? I don't know if it was a prostitution house. That's why I'm going with like a you know, not porn house. I would imagine burlesque. I mean, right? Once back in the day, that's what it was all about, was the ankles. Got to see them ankles, bro.
is that despite her humble beginnings, the girl rose to become one of the most famous and sought-after geishas in all of Japan, and was so beautiful and...
Never mind. There's. Yep, yep. It wasn't moral support in any way. No, no, no. Well, maybe after.
energetic that she earned the nickname Yoarashi, a storm in the night.
That's pretty.
After stints with some of the most
Like
powerful
that.
provincial lords in all of Greater Tokyo,
I don't remember it, but it was an amazing name. A Storm in the Night. God, see, Japanese culture is so cool. My name just means Billy. I want my name to mean something like thunderous snake sent from the gods to swallow everything. That'd be amazing. Hmm. What's your name mean? It means me. It's Billy. Hi.
Yoarashi found herself living with a man named Kobayashi Kimpei.
Samurai Jack. I swear. Don't look it.
Kimpei was a highly successful financier, and although he provided Yoarashi with a luxurious lifestyle, he was also extremely controlling and cruel, and
He looks mean. I mean, he does. He's got that look. He's got that glare in his eye, like he's looking at you like, "Ooh, you son of a bitch." See? And he's frowning, and his nose is. He's so mad that his nose is frowning with it. Yeah, I can see that. He's angry. I know. It's
beat her often. Kimpei also forbade Yoarashi from ever having any other clients, and, unless accompanied by one of his employees, she was to remain confined to her gilded cage. However, one evening during her mid-20s, Yoarashi attended a kabuki play starring a famously dashing actor named Arashi Rikaku, Tokyo's very own Casanova.
that's a Casanova.
Following the play's conclusion, Yoarashi demanded a meeting
Traditional looks were mighty different back in the day.
with the actor in order to personally congratulate him, and though their conversation was brief, she found herself falling deeply and madly in love with him. Yoarashi ended up paying for Rikaku's services, and the pair began to exchange letters in secret. After Rikaku reciprocated her feelings, the pair hatched a plot to elope together. Yet, Yoarashi knew that upon fleeing Tokyo, her current partner, Kimpei, would hunt them to the ends of the earth.
Kimpei's gotta pay.
If they
Gotta
wished
die.
to be free, Kimpei needed to be dealt with. So,
Gotcha.
the duo concocted a plot. On the 2nd of March, 1871, Yoarashi
That looks so yummy. Coconut shavings and. Bro, I love food.
laced Kimpei's porridge with rat poison, then feigned
Never mind. Never.
ignorance as he slowly and painfully expired. For a time, Yoarashi avoided suspicion, but when she fell pregnant with Rikaku's child, people obviously began to talk, and the authorities soon deduced that only Yoarashi would have had access to Kimpei's food on the day he died. Provincial law enforcement rushed to apprehend her and found her hiding out at Rikaku's home. Both of them were taken into custody. Yoarashi was sentenced to death for Kimpei's slaying, but was allowed to stay alive until her baby was born. Rikaku
That at least, I mean, that's at least nice of him. I mean, she did murder someone, but at least they're going to be like, you're going to die. But you get to have your baby go through immense amount of pain, and then as soon as your baby's out, we're cutting off your fucking head.
on the other hand, was sentenced to just 3 years. 3 days after giving birth, on the 28th of March, 1872, Yoarashi was led from her prison cell and escorted to Tokyo's execution grounds. When asked if she had any last words, Yoarashi simply stated, "Just cause demands repayment." And although disguised as an acceptance of her punishment, such a statement could easily be interpreted as showing a complete lack of remorse. After all, Kimpei's beatings had given her just cause, and Yoarashi had repaid him in full. As the executioner lined up his katana, Yoarashi recited a
That is what we're looking at. See, that's another thing. The Japanese culture, it's not always just so much of what you're saying, it's how you're saying it. Because, like, the same word can have different meanings, and so, yeah, it very well could have had a whole different meaning to it.
Short poem. When she had finished, the swordsman brought down the blade and took off her head.
Holy shit, I was right. They cut off her head. Bro, I am on a roll. You know, yeah, I think I'm psychic. All right, I'm gonna go ahead and throw that out there. I am predicting shit left and right. Lottery numbers, telling you. I'm gonna try. I'm gonna try one day. But once I know I got down.
Head that was displayed to the public for several days. Yoarashi's
Several.
tale captured the imagination of Tokyoites, and sensationalized accounts of her life sold as quickly as they could be printed. Soon, the truth of the story became muddled with fiction. Within a short time, Yoarashi became one of the nation's most infamous dokufu, the word used for femme fatales that use poison to end lives. Some say that the story sated the Japanese people's morbid fascination, but it's just as likely that people were enthralled by the idea that Yoarashi felt a love so strong that she was quite literally willing to kill for it.
I mean, that has always been a thing. Like, when it comes to love, not only is it like the ultimate best thing in the world, but are you willing to sacrifice everything for it? You know what I mean? Like, you murder someone, your shit's over. You're done. Murder someone for love, or are you willing for your shit to be done? Over with. Beneath. Yeah, I could see it.
On the 26th of May, 1883, a Mr. and Mrs. Curtin of Mulheim am Rhein, Germany, welcomed their first of 13 children into the world. A son whom they named Peter. Peter's father was particularly cruel, and would sometimes force the entire family to watch as he beat one of them for some minor infraction. The situation was so dire that Mr. Curtin was jailed for 18 months.
This is one of those situations where it's like, you did something dumb. You know something? You're gonna get punished. This is a learning moment for everyone. Is it something like that? Because that's pretty fucked up.
In 1897. Not long after, Mrs. Curtin obtained an emergency separation order and would go on to remarry and relocate to the city of Dusseldorf. She hoped that the move might heal some fractures in the psyche of
This is a funny thing. Dusseldorf. I know it's probably very quite common word, but I don't know what Dusseldorf is.
her young children.
I don't know.
But for one of
I don't
them,
know.
it was far too late for that. Unfortunately for her and the city, her eldest son, Peter, would grow up to earn the nickname the Vampire of Dusseldorf. Peter began to exhibit frightening behavior from the age of 5. In one incident, his mother walked in on him attempting to drown one of his playmates, and as much as she tried to correct such sinister behavior, Peter was beyond repair. Just before his 10th birthday, Peter was befriended by a local dog catcher who appeared to take pity on the lonely boy and allowed him to join him on his rounds. The dog catcher was also responsible for disposing of any stray animals who were either lame or diseased.
Oh, please don't tell me you let the kid do weird, fucked up things to the animals before or after they died. Little weird son of a bitch probably killed him with like weird way. Oh, God.
And on several occasions, put them down in front of the 9-year-old Peter. Not long after, Peter joined 2 other young boys in sailing a homemade raft on a nearby lake. When one of the boys fell off the raft and began struggling to stay afloat, the other dived into the water in an attempt to save him. The young lad dragged his companion back to the edge of the raft and began begging Peter for help. But Peter didn't help. Instead, he pushed the conscious boy's head under the water and held him there until his thrashing ceased.
What?
He watched with pleasure as both of the boys' bodies bobbed up and down in the lake. Peter would later tell local authorities that it was all just a horrible accident, and nothing in their investigation suggested otherwise. But, in reality, a 9-year-old boy had just gotten his first taste of extinguishing human life, and he had enjoyed it.
You got 2
Peter
for
dropped
1.
out of school in his early teens, and would often disappear from his family home for days on end. Much of that time was spent in the company of small-time crooks and ladies of the night, and it was while wandering the streets of Dusseldorf that Peter
Well, at least we know he's got his priorities right. I mean,
met his first girlfriend.
was a lady of the night.
Peter later stated that after a few weeks of dating, he had attempted to initiate intimacy with the young woman. Following her refusal, he
Yes.
flew into a rage. He stormed off, wondering
It wasn't a refusal. It's like, hey, how's that feel? She's like, oh, you put it in? And everything went dark.
aimlessly for hours until he
Oh,
came across a
shit.
small farm on the city's outskirts. It was there that Peter vented his frustration on the poor, innocent livestock that inhabited the stables. Using a variety of sharp and blunt farming equipment, Peter set about slaughtering as many animals as he could before their screeching woke a nearby farmer. After hearing about this incident, Peter's stepfather attempted to set him on the straight and narrow. He arranged for Peter to become an apprentice moulder, but over the next 2 years, Peter's behavior gradually worsened, until, one day, he stole as much money as he could from his family and his employer, and ran away to begin a new life of criminality. During the summer of 1904, Peter was drafted into the 98th Infantry Regiment of the Imperial German Army, and was briefly stationed in the occupied city of Metz. He found life in the army to be tedious, but he soon found a very special way of keeping himself entertained.
More murder.
He would work out which areas of the city were popular with homeless people, then would set fire to buildings in those areas in hopes of roasting them alive.
Holy shit.
When he heard that the military police considered him a suspect in the arsons, Peter attempted to flee his post, but was quickly apprehended and questioned by the officers.
Dude just is not good at what he do. He just needs to stop. He needs to stop. He's being questioned too much. Eventually you get questioned by the police and they're gonna be like, why the fuck have we questioned him so damn much and at every single one of these damn murders?
Peter admitted to 24 different acts of arson across the city of Metz, as well
Holy
as
shit.
attempted desertion. He would spend the next 8 years in a series of military prisons, stewing in a...
Why military prisons? It's probably a really stupid question to ask. Why military? Is there a specific reason why it was military? Is it because of the crimes that he committed, or
desire to strike back at a society that he believed had failed him, counting down the days until he could finally wreak a terrible vengeance on the world. Come 1913, Derendorf prison didn't release a reformed citizen back into their society. They released a monster upon it. Peter fell back.
Hey, ain't that how it is though? I mean, yeah, some people probably do go into prisons like, no, and come out a better person. But what about the people that go in and learn from all the other bad people that go in and just don't care? Now you're just making monsters into super monsters. It's fucked up.
back into a life of crime immediately upon release, and it was while burglarizing a tavern in Mulheim am Rhein that he came across a target of opportunity. Tucked up in a blanket in one of the bedrooms was a 9-year-old girl named Christine Klein. As he stared at the serene look on the child's face, all the vengeful jailhouse thoughts that had festered inside of him came rushing back. Peter strangled Christine unconscious before slicing her throat. The very next day, Peter returned to the scene of the crime and sat alone in a small tap house that had a view of the Klein household. As he watched the police officers coming and going, he began to overhear snippets of a conversation from the next table over. Peter's fellow patrons discussed how only a monster could commit such a terrible act, and admitted that the incident had made them fear for their own children's lives.
Yeah.
Anyone else might feel shame upon hearing such a conversation. But
And he's probably like, hey, next round's on me. Right? Yeah. Bartender really did it this time.
instead of remorse, Peter felt pride. He would occasionally visit Christine's grave and handle some of the fresh dirt which lay atop of it with pleasure. Following another spell in prison for petty crimes, as well as an unsuccessful and unfaithful marriage, Peter found himself desperate, angry, and alone. There was nothing to dampen his murderous rage, and in early 1929, a then 46-year-old Peter began to act upon his darkest desires.
I mean, I don't want to be one of those judge a book by its covers type people. But do you guys see that face? He kind of looks like a murderer. Like, okay, put it to you like this. If it was Halloween and you was wanting to go as a serial killer prisoner and you seen this mask right here, right there, and right there, you seen that mask and it came with the prison outfit, would it or would it not make a good like prison murderer costume?
On the 3rd of February 1929, Peter noticed an older woman walking near some parkland. He followed her until they were both alone. Suddenly, Peter rushed up behind her, threw his arm around her neck, and growled, "Don't scream," into her ear. After producing a sharpened pair of scissors, Peter stabbed the woman 24 times, with some wounds being so deep that the scissors struck bone. Less than a week later, Peter ambushed another 9-year-old girl named Rosa Olga. He strangled her unconscious before descending into a frenzy of savage butchery. Once she was deceased, Peter set Rosa's body on fire, then briefly watched her burn before fleeing the scene. February 13th saw Peter attack 45-year-old mechanic Rudolf Scheer. Rudolf was stabbed more than 20 times before Peter gouged his eyes out. Following the discovery of his body, Peter revisited the scene of the crime, feigning ignorance while chatting with police officers. Following an increase in police activity surrounding the slayings, Peter made the decision to lay low until the late summer of 1929.
Why don't we just fucking move? Go somewhere else. Start killing there. Cause you know something? These people have had enough. Everyone deserves a fucking break. Nobody think twice about you moving. I mean, think about all the murders. It's like, oh, this place is going to shit. There's like people popping up dead all over the fucking place. I want out. I want away. I'm done. I'm out. I'm gone. Sayonara, sucker. You know what I mean?
But after a young woman named Maria Hahn caught his eye, he resumed his grisly work.
Yep.
Peter began dating Maria on and off in early August, and after gaining her trust, lured her into a secluded meadow and stabbed her to death. He later stated that it took Maria almost an hour to die, and that he deliberately prolonged her suffering as a form of entertainment, and he went on to taunt local law enforcement by sending them an anonymous letter describing where they could find Maria's remains. In order to confuse the investigation, Peter switched up his weapon of choice from a pair of scissors to a razor-sharp blade. And on the night of August 20th, he attacked 3 different people in a series of frenzied stabbings. 3 days later, Peter cornered 2 young sisters, aged 14 and 5, as they departed a small fairground.
The fuck?
After promising the older girl that he would reward her should she go and purchase some items for him.
Dude too scared to like go after, someone that can whoop his ass and try to kill? You gotta go after like old people and kids? I'd bitch slap him right in his face. I would. I would. I'm sorry. I would.
Peter led 5-year-old Gertrude Hammacher into a secluded field before strangling her. When Gertrude's older sister returned, Peter lunged at her, sinking his teeth deep into her throat before guzzling down the blood which seeped from her wound. The very next day, Peter asked a 27-year-old servant girl to join him on a date. When she refused, he stabbed her repeatedly in the neck and head. Somehow, the servant girl survived her injuries and was later able to give a full and detailed description of her assailant to police officers. Peter waited until late September to once again indulge in his ghoulish desires. After meeting a 31-year-old housemaid at a Dusseldorf train station, the urge to kill overwhelmed him. He managed to persuade the young.
There needs to just be put down. Oh my god. Like in the worst way possible. He just needs to be fucking brutally murdered.
Ida Reuter to join him for a cup of coffee. Then, after the pair went for a walk along the banks of the Rhine River, he attacked her, this time with a hammer. Ida begged for him to spare her life, but Peter flat out refused. November of 1929 saw Peter take the life of 5-year-old Gertrude Olbermann, dispatching of her with a single stab wound to the left temple. Peter later told police that after she had collapsed to the ground without a sound, he set about mutilating her body before composing another anonymous letter describing where her remains could be found. 6 months later, in May of 1930, Peter played the White Knight.
Fuck, that was a lot. But most of the time, he needs to change to fucked. History's most fucked true crime cases. Because the fuck. It just, there's so much time left. I just want to be over, man. I can't do it. It's just so.
To a young woman named Maria Budlik, who was being pestered by a prospective suitor. He chased away the young man who was bothering her, and then invited her back to his apartment for some refreshments. Once the woman had calmed down, she recognized that Peter was attempting to woo her. She rebuffed his advances, but Peter seemed to take the rejection in his stride before offering to walk her home.
Oh.
Once the two were alone in a section of woodland, he attempted to strangle her. For some reason, though, when this woman begged for mercy, Peter relented. He apologized to the woman before fleeing the scene, and although she didn't inform the police, she later described the incident to a friend in a handwritten letter. This was the beginning of Peter's downfall, and it all stemmed from an incorrect address. Since the address on Maria's envelope was incorrect, the postmaster opened it before reading the letter. After reading about the attack, he sent its contents to the chief of Dusseldorf's police. By this point, the slayings had received considerable attention, both national and international, with the perpetrator being dubbed the Vampire of Dusseldorf, thanks to the fact that he had consumed some of his victims' blood. Both the postmaster and the chief of police noticed the similarities between the vampire killings and Maria Budlick's encounter. So, Chief Inspector Gennert set about tracking Maria down so that he could properly interview her. It took some time to convince her, but in the end, Maria agreed to lead police to Peter's apartment. The building's landlady was only too happy to confirm that the apartment belonged to one Peter Curtin.
Damn, this dude just can't catch a break about like, hey, fuck that son of a bitch. No, he deserves it. I mean, he's a piece of shit. But everyone's like, no. It's that fucking face. It's that face. Can't trust it.
By pure happenstance, Peter walked up to his apartment building just as his lodgings were being searched. He made a run for it, but despite his best efforts to escape justice, was arrested just days later. With a mountain of evidence stacked against him, Peter confessed to being the Vampire of Dusseldorf and detailed how he had committed a grand total of 68 separate attacks. He offered no apology for his crimes, and instead justified them on the grounds that he was simply striking back at a world that had so horribly wronged him.
Okay.
Peter also added that he found the sight of his victims' insides to be thrilling beyond words, and confirmed that he had drank so much of Maria Hahn's blood that he had vomited shortly after. On the 13th of April, 1931, Peter Curtin stood trial in the same city he had so hideously victimized. At his trial, Peter was interred in a heavily guarded, shoulder-high iron cage to protect him from the enraged relatives of his victims. Initially, he pled not guilty by reason of insanity.
There's so many. There's fucking 68 victims. If they come from like a family of 5, holy shit. Dude, you're fucked. You're dead. 3 families get hold of you, you're dead. You have hundreds of people trying to whoop that ass. Ugh.
But just a few days into his trial, Peter instructed his defense attorney that he wished to plead guilty. Following his apparent change of heart, Peter became much more willing to discuss his own thoughts and feelings regarding his crimes. The judge asked Peter if he felt any remorse, to which Peter responded, quote, "I have none. Never did I think to myself that what I did was bad. The punishments I have suffered have destroyed all my feelings as a human being. That was why I had no pity for my victims, and thinking back to all the details is not at all unpleasant for me. In fact, I rather enjoy it." After just one...
How much shit does a person have to go through before they just shut off everything? That's a scary fucking thought. What if you're not just born like that? What if there's something you can just be like, and be done? Just be like, okay. That's fucking creepy. That's creepy.
1 week of evidence and argument, it took the jury little over 2 hours to find Peter guilty of ending 9 lives and attempting to end 7 others. Peter showed no emotion as the verdict was read out, and remained unmoved when the judge sentenced him to the guillotine. At 6 a.m. on the 2nd of July, 1931,
It's cause he's a vampire.
Peter Curtin was escorted to the execution chamber of the Kingelputz prison. Walking by his side was the prison psychiatrist and a priest. After voluntarily placing his head into the guillotine, Peter turned to the psychiatrist and calmly asked, "Doctor, after my head is chopped off, will I still be able to hear the sound of my own blood gushing from the stump of my neck?" That would be the pleasure to end all pleasures. Shortly afterwards, the executioner sent the guillotine's blade slicing into Peter's neck, removing his head from his body and putting an end to the man who had more than earned the nickname, the Vampire of Dusseldorf.
Motherfucker needed a damn hobby. That's what he needed. He needed to get him some booty. He needed some. He need to find Jesus. What? Oh, like, dude, like, tie something around your neck and go at it. Do something. Don't fucking. Oh, will I be able to hear the blood gushing out my bloody stump? Oh. So fucked up. Oh god. Oh no. 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 Oh, that's so fucked up. Mm. All three. All three. All three. I got something in my eye. Oh. All three of those stories were so fucked. Each and every single one of them. I love them all. If you all enjoyed today's stories as much as I did, please go down there. See that thumb? Do your thing. Tickle it. Punch it. Poop in your hand and throw it at it. Do whatever that like button wants you to do. It's his day today. And if you're a fan of the spooky, scary, strange, deranged things that just stick with you like shit, think about subscribing. Get you some shit. As always, be good to one another. I'll see you in the next one. Bye bye. Oh, they killed Count Dracula. Oh, that was one sick fucker. He kind of looks like a cousin of mine. That's the creepy thing about it.